All right, welcome everybody. Before we start the regular City Planning Commission meeting, we actually have a couple of, actually three public hearings that we need to take care of. The first one has to do with a special use permit for ADI development at 1020 West Fulton Street. And usually the way, I'm not sure, Andrew is filling in for Brennan, and he's going to be with us on a 3 or 4 day, 3 days a week with us. So Andrew Dane is his name. And we'll talk a little bit more once we get into the City Planning Commission, but I just wanted to introduce him to all of you. As we talk about the special use permit, Henry or Andrew, I'm not sure which one of you is prepared for this, but usually we try to just give a brief explanation of what's going on with the special use permit before we ask for people to get up to the podium and stuff. So, okay, awesome. So let's start with the ADI one then, and just tell us what that's all about, Andrew.
Okay, well,
Andrew, before you need to
speak into the mic?
Yeah, because
Okay.
everything's recorded.
Very good. And videotaped, right, you guys? Or are those just
You're
the council
actually on
meetings?
TV tonight.
We're on TV.
Yeah.
Is this even? Yeah, I guess it's on. Okay, where's the cameras coming from? So this is the Domino's Pizza development, which is moving a block west of their current location over to an existing strip mall in the B4 zoning district. And I believe your zoning code requires special use permits for restaurants. We've met with Tony and worked through the site plan, worked through the special use permit process, took a look at this project, and essentially, I believe this was a previous Arby's. Is that correct? There was a restaurant, so it's a similar use, obviously, continues to be a restaurant. Went through, looked at some issues regarding access, and didn't see any major fatal flaws with regards to parking or access. Saw that through the special use permit, this would be an allowable use as a special use. And so therefore we were staff level, input from Rhonda, had a little bit of overlap with Brennan on this project, obviously just kind of walked into this role, this position about a week ago. But our staff recommendation was for approval of the special use permit, subject to some conditions on the second page of the memo.
Okay. So at this time, then, we would take testimony in favor of the special use permit for ADI development. Is there anybody that would like to give testimony in favor? Step up to the podium, give your name and address, and limit your time at the podium to 3 minutes or less.
I don't know if is this on?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I'm Tony Hoos, president of ADI Development Company out of Green Bay. And we obviously are in favor of relocating Domino's. Basically, what they're doing is they would like to expand. Right now, they have about 1,700 square feet. They'd like to expand. The Arby's space is about 2,800 square feet. So that would allow them additional square footage, a little bit of outdoor seating. It would also give them an opportunity to have a drive-through window, which is something they wanted to do. So we're very excited to work with them, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if I can.
Okay. Again, this is, Tony, the way this works, at least in the city level here is that you just tell us why you're in favor of the subject, and then once we get into the regular City Planning Commission, if any of the members have questions, they'll certainly ask you to step back up to the podium at that time.
All right.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you. Anybody else that would like to give testimony in favor of the ADI development project and the special use permit? Any testimony in opposition? Hearing none, I declare this hearing closed at 5:20 PM. All right, the next one, Andrew, Andrew, with a special use permit, I keep forgetting how this works. A special use permit is only approved at the planning commission level, or do we have to move
I
that?
think it
forward?
goes to council as
That
well.
goes to council? Okay,
The site plan is totally your purview.
okay. All right, and the same thing then with rezoning too would also be a recommendation to council, right? Think I'd know that after all these years, but, okay. Let's go on to the next public hearing. I call that meeting to order. It has to do with the rezoning of the Church of Christ of Waupaca, which is at 215 West Badger Street, and it's got an ordinance along with it, ordinance number 0419. The same 7 individuals, commissioners, are in attendance that were at the previous meeting a couple of minutes ago. So again, Andrew, if you want to just tell us what's going on with the rezone on this property.
Sure. I believe with this property, it's an expansion onto existing structure out there, and so immediately adjacent on the same, they picked up an additional parcel, I believe, that had some resource. It was a district that was resource conservation, so intended to protect some wetlands or sensitive environmental areas. The expansion will go onto that portion of the lot, which is outside of the wetlands, sensitive environmental area, and so would not be directly impacting that area. The rezoning essentially brings that into the B2 Central Business District, and doesn't have any direct impacts on the wetlands or the floodplain. And it seemed consistent with the existing use of the site. So they're proposing to do the rezoning for that portion, for a portion, I believe it's about half of the lot that they've acquired adjacent the existing church.
Okay, thanks. Andrew, at this time then, we would take testimony in favor of the rezoning of this property. Again, if you'd like to give testimony in favor, step up to the podium, give your name and address for the record, and limit your time to 3 minutes or less at the podium. Anybody that'd like to give testimony in favor of? Any testimony in opposition? If not, I declare this hearing closed at 5:22 PM. All right, next, still dealing with the Church of Christ. They need a special use permit for that property. So Andrew, you want to explain that also?
Sure, give a little bit of background here. Church has been at this facility since the mid-1970s, and has continued to grow and make some improvements to the current structure with the intention of remaining there. However, the existing facility isn't adequate in size to meet the growing congregation. So with the acquisition of the property adjacent, they have proposed auditorium addition to the existing building at ground level, which is going to provide for some better access from elderly, handicapped, as well as expand their space to allow for up to 240 folks. It also includes space for a small parking lot, up with 18 spaces for parking. I believe there's also a little drop-off area to allow for getting people in and out. And again, we had reviewed the site, or reviewed the use, and it seemed consistent with what's already occurring on the site, and doesn't seem to have a negative impact on the surrounding property owners, and a lot of the site related issues have been addressed in the through the site plan review process. So our recommendation was to that the Plan Commission approve the special use permit.
So churches are also required to have a special use permit. Is that why we're here with this?
I'm trying to remember why this one triggered the special use permit.
Is it maybe because of the floodplain?
Well, if you remember back to and I probably should remember back to Trinity when they did their expansion project, and also when the Episcopal Church did their expansion on Main Street, they had to have special use permits too. But I was just wondering.
It may be a
what
special
triggers
use. It quite likely is a special use within the B2 Central Business District, I'm guessing.
Yeah, or if it had to do with parking and lighting, I'm not sure, but yeah, I was just wondering.
Yeah.
Probably comment on that in the write-up of the last one you looked at. It's, when we did the zoning patch in '09, I think that was a conscientious policy to require a special uses permits for a lot of different uses. That would give the Plan Commission a lot of ability to weigh in on developments and things like that. We've come to learn that it is a little burdensome sometimes, a little onerous, but it was intended to give you some more ability to have input.
Okay, thanks. At this time, then, we would take testimony in favor of the special use permit for the Church of Christ on their continued property there. Anybody that would like to give testimony in favor of the special use permit, please step up to the podium. Limit your discussion to 3 minutes or less. Any testimony in favor of? Any testimony in opposition? Any testimony in opposition? I declare this hearing closed at 5:27 p.m. All right, let's move right into City Planning Commission. You're all set? All right. Okay. Welcome, everybody, to our regular City Planning Commission meeting. Today is May 1st, 2019, and it is 5:27 p.m. You have in attendance, we have Commissioners Keelan, Olson, Kinnear, Fair, Barrett, Justin Behrens, and Mayor Brian Smith, and we also have staff Henry Velliker and Andrew Dane. We would need a motion to approve the agenda. Now, there was one handout that you should have on your desk having to do with the pizza, the Domino's.
So move for approval.
I'll second.
Motion by Pat, second by Tracy, that we approve the agenda with that one handout. Discussion?
Were you going to talk
Oh,
about?
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, the one thing that's not on the agenda that we'll try and take care of at the June meeting is that, remember, we started approving the minutes of the previous meetings. That's not on here, so we're gonna have to do April and May at our June meeting and approve those minutes at that time. Thank you, Alan, for reminding me. It was only 5 minutes ago, you told me. Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Annual review of the Code of Ethics after elections. We always approve the Code of Ethics that you have in your packet. We trust that everybody has read that. And if you have any questions on it or don't agree with it, this is the time. Otherwise, we'll just make a motion to approve it and put it on file that the City Planning Commission is okay with it.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Keelan, second by Olson, that we approve or review the annual Code of Ethics. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. All right, down to action items then. Special use permit for ADI Development Company, 1020 West Fulton Street. We did have a public hearing right before the meeting to discuss this. And Andrew, do you want to add anything to what you told us in the public hearing part of it?
I don't have any more comments.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions of Tony, as long as he's here?
Well, I just have the question on the handout. Is the handout we received tonight different from the one that we had in our packet earlier? What is the difference?
Yeah, I would probably defer a little bit to Tony on that.
Okay. If you want to just give your name again, please, that would be great.
Tony Hoos with ADI Development Company.
Okay?
The only difference was a slight variation in the size of the kitchen area as opposed to the dining area. I believe it's about 70% of Domino's sales are by way of delivery. So that had more to do with that than anything. So it was just a slight floor plan change.
Okay. And as long as you're at the podium, when will the internal reconfiguration start on this project, and how long do you expect that to take?
Well, we're in the process right now. I would say within the next 2 weeks, we should have our mechanical plans, the other plans that are needed as far as the renovation, that type of thing, to be able to submit to Jane Drager. And once those are approved, I believe Jane said it would take her maybe a week, so not long at all. She'd be able to turn it around, get it approved, and then I would say inside of 60 days, we would be completed.
Okay. And do you have any idea what the number of employees will be once this is up and running?
I don't. I certainly can get that information.
Well, I
for
was
you.
just curious. I thought maybe you could just give us that information if you had it, but that's all right.
How you doing?
Tony, have you had the opportunity to look at the Planning Commission report? And I'm looking more specifically at, do you agree to everything that is listed in the Planning Commission report?
Yeah, I don't see any issues.
Okay,
But
great.
you bet.
All right. Anybody else have any questions? If not, we'd be looking for a motion to send this to City Council.
Also move.
Second.
Motion by Tracy, second by Allen, that we recommend to council the special use permit for ADI Development Company at 1020 West Fulton Street, which is Domino's Pizza. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
All right, rezone. Church of Christ of Waupaca at 215 West Badger Street, and this is, since it's a rezoning, it needs to be in an ordinance format. So at the end here, if you're okay with it, we would be recommending this to council. Is this on a fast track, Henry or Andrew?
I think we were just going to bring it through. It'll be approved at May 21st meeting,
Okay.
assuming you recommend approval.
Tonight, yeah. Remember with ordinances, the council members know this, but others, ordinance have to be, you have a first reading at one meeting, and then the second meeting, you actually have the final reading, and then it's approved at that time. So it takes 2 meetings to get that approved at the council level. Andrew, anything you'd like to add to the rezone there?
I don't think so.
So could you just remind us again, what we're rezoning it from what to what exactly? I know, if I can look it up here, but just remind us what that is.
That parcel, I think, was partially, it's like a resource conservation area.
Correct, yep.
Yeah.
And they carved out what they were going to build on, and, they had to resurvey it, and that
Right,
particular
that-
lot was rezoned from resource conservation to, was it
B2.
B2.
So that would be Lot 2 on the map here. Okay.
We do have 3 individuals that are from the church here tonight. Any of you have anything to add to the rezoning part of this tonight? You're okay?
So do you have to the city have to notify the neighbors within a certain distance on these kinds of changes?
Yeah, I believe so. On the rezoning, they should have received
They all received
the
that already?
letters. Yep.
And hence the public hearing.
Yeah, and there was
Yeah,
obviously nobody problem with it.
right.
So we're gonna have to take this in two motions, one for the ordinance change and then one for the,
We're just going to recommend the rezoning to council, and then the council will take up the ordinance part of it.
and then the site plan, we'll do it.
Will be a second. You're right. Yep,
So really, it's a partial rezoning of the second lot from that north half that sticks out, that's kind of the new line is where it juts back in. That's going to remain RC. That's what I understand from the map. Lot 2 on the exhibit. And then, basically it's opening up the half of that RC zoning to development for the church use. So I think I'm understanding that correctly. Do we have a lot of, just a quick question, do we have a lot of lots like that in the city where there's two types of zoning on one lot?
Yes.
We do? Okay. All right.
that drops
Okay.
off quite a ways, if I remember right, as a kid playing back there.
Yeah,
So,
so-
yeah, I don't think you could build there if you wanted to, yeah.
Right.
On the backside of it, yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
good.
all right, thanks, John.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody want to make a recommendation to council?
I'll move that we make that recommendations to
Rezone?
adopt ordinance number 04-19.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Alan, second by Pat, that we recommend ordinance number 0419 to city council. Any discussion?
Would this be on the agenda for next week's meeting already?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, it has to go through two, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Two
Two
readings.
reading.
Yeah. Yep. All right, any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Against?
I'm
Motion.
abstaining.
Okay, so we have 6 ayes, no nays, and 1 abstention. Eric informed me before the meeting that he is a member of the church and he just feels comfortable in not voting on this.
Okay.
Okay, next we have the special use permit for the Church of Christ. And again, Andrew, anything you want to add to that?
I don't think so.
Well, my only question would be the same that you brought up, Mayor, and that is if the members of the whoever's making decisions from the church are okay with the office's recommendations, if everybody's good with all the recommendations at this point, or if there's any questions on any of those recommendations.
Yeah, I haven't.
I mean, now would be the time to talk it over.
Yes.
That's when you gotta play music. Do, 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 do.
Still have the site plan to ask questions. Yeah,
True.
because that's where the requirements are, if I remember.
Well, there's quite a
Site
list
plan.
there.
Yeah, true. They're in both. Yeah,
That's just for the site.
there's a separate list, correct.
Page 30.
Yeah, so the
one
special
just-
use has some standards of approval. But again, I think the question is valid. Are they understanding the standards of approval for the special use permit? So, and I'm assuming they're okay with that. Okay, awesome. Anybody else have any questions on the special use permit? Again, as you heard before, this is recommend it to city council, so we'd need a motion to recommend this to council, if you so choose.
I move to recommend.
I'll second.
Motion by Alan, second by Tracy, that we recommend to council the special use permit for the Church of Christ at 215 West Badger Street. Discussion?
Well, maybe we could at least, and I don't know if Andrew, if you can answer this, assuming it goes through the council on the 2nd, on the 21st, if that's the ordinance change, and then the site plan is adopted, what would be the timeframe in terms of construction?
Some questions about
Regarding
your
the
project.
timeframe for construction once you get through the special use.
We're not on a timeframe.
Okay.
We're gonna work with the builder and try to squeeze in when might be advantageous for costs. So maybe probably we'd like to get going this fall and have it closed in for a winter project, if at all possible. We do have state approval already, so.
So that means that getting the approval of everything through council is not going to be an issue here.
Sure.
If you're not,
right,
yeah.
Right,
If you're not in
exactly.
a hurry. Okay. That's good.
How long is a special use permit valid? Is it valid for a year, or?
Good question. And I was thinking your building, your state permit's probably good for only a certain period. I mean, a
I would
permit in
think
our city.
I think it's 1 year.
I think it's 1 year.
Okay. All right. We have a motion, right? And a second?
I don't remember who that was
Alan
Alan.
and
I made
Tracy?
it. Tracy second.
for the special use
Special
permit.
use.
Yep.
Yep, thank you.
All right, ready to vote? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried.
Mayor, may I comment about this project?
Uh-huh.
I think this is a textbook case of how you should do a project. These gentlemen of this building committee reached out to us probably 2 years ago. Every time flies. They came up, said, we want to do this. They came to the staff. What are the implications? What do we need to do? And they asked great questions. We walked them through it. And then we've got this nice conclusion to, you know, all the approvals that they need. So they're going to still have to pull some permit. As opposed to what happened today, that we learned that somebody's bought a property and they want to redevelop it, and it goes against our zoning. And, you know, they're getting contractors walking through the building, probably getting bids. Hopefully they haven't started construction. So it's just a whole different approach to the project. And I think we really appreciate folks like these that, you know, are willing to kind of work with the city and look to us for guidance. Now we're in this other situation, we're going to be in conflict likely, and it's, you know, it's not good, but we'll get through it. But I just thought it was worthy to comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, looking at the site plan review, Andrew, we haven't really talked about that yet today, but would you like to make some comments on that?
Yeah, I can make a few comments. I did walk through this with Brendan prior to him leaving. And then in looking through here, there's one item that I noticed. You know, so you all have kind of come up with some criteria for the site plan review process. One of the items that Brendan and I discussed and probably had slightly different thoughts on was site on the second page of this report, site plan review packet under site plan, item number 4. Staff continues to have concern with the orientation of the proposed parking lot. Goes on. I know Brendan had some concerns regarding the confusion and access of the parking lot back to the street or the alley there. I believe the church was proposing a canopy for drop-off and a couple travel lanes to enter in. And I believe Brennan's concern was that there could be confusion regarding potential for, say, somebody's in the drop-off lane and then They're parked there, and then you've got people coming in the second entry lane, and you could have people potentially trying to exit out of that lane, out of that parking lot. There is another exit point off of the lot. I am kind of the opinion that it's a small enough lot and people are going slow enough and they're at church, and I don't see people, I don't have a major concern with that. I think people would be able to rationally negotiate through a small lot like this and go out the exit if there was traffic coming in. So that's kind of my one comment. I know in there he references an attached sketch, and I don't know if that detached sketch
don't
maybe
see it
didn't
in
here.
here.
I don't think I saw it, but he was recommending an alternative option whereby they might change the ingress. So I don't know if that's something of concern to folks or something that people from the church wanted to address. I personally didn't see a major concern with that item, but I know that's something that Brendan did bring up.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had a chance
a-
to look at that either, Justin.
Not the edited sketch that Brennan put in. Roger Hansen and myself did meet with a number of those individuals, and we talked about this configuration. We threw a bunch of ideas together, and I'm just wondering if you guys can jog my memory. The 24-foot driveway, is that a one-way in, or is that a multi-direction?
Generally, it's going to be.
Brian, you better get him on a mic.
Yeah, I'm sorry, sir, can you step up to the podium, please? And
Yeah.
just give us your name too, please, and,
Hi, I'm Rod Cox of Cox and Associates Architects.
okay, sorry,
So-
start over with what you were, thank you.
Basically, it'll be controlled as an in point and then around and out, so it'll be kind of a designated in and an out.
So it's a one-way, the 24-foot driveway is one way in, just 2 lanes, and then you circle around and then you enter South Franklin, a one-way out.
Right.
Are you anticipating, I guess, painting any arrows down, like showing that that's one way in and one way out, or signing that way?
It's,
Allowed to, that'd be fine.
yeah.
Oh, sure.
Could I suggest that the one-way changes to counterclockwise?
No.
No? Because it
It
doesn't
works-
make sense to me.
Well, the east side of South Franklin, you'll be driving north naturally on the east side of it, and you'll be
Right.
coming on the west side coming south.
Right.
So as you would exit, well, I guess I take
You're
that back.
crossing
If you were to
traffic.
enter, you'd be crossing that traffic lane.
So,
I'm looking at circulation. It works really nice, and there's no crossing of traffic if you reverse it. Then the drop-off as well is the biggest thing is your passenger door would be right next to the door, which is nice for a few people, I'm sure, that have trouble getting in. You'd put your passenger door right next to the door. But you also have Franklin southbound traffic on the west side of the road coming in, sticking to the west side, and then
You know, you're probably right, because
Looping.
then you wouldn't be crossing that left turn crossing in,
yeah.
eliminating that.
I
And
think
they're
it's
at the
just
end of a dead end, so really to enter in that way is not going to be much of a conflict at
yeah,
all.
it's more of a natural flow too. It's the flow roundabouts have, for example. But suggestion, I honestly, if this is the layout you want, I'm not going to say no because of that. But I think from a engineering and planning standpoint, it would make a lot of sense for you to.
But if they're dropping a person off, then I guess they have to go back around the park, which
Yeah.
is fine. But it does make sense as far as if they're dropping off a passenger, right? Because then they'd be facing the
Door.
building.
Yeah, and then you have the drive-through lane. I like that. You have the options there. I think just site circulation. I've seen a lot of it, designed a lot of it.
But I'm assuming that
It'll work
that they have the
better.
double lane so that if somebody's dropping off, that a car
Can
kinda
go by.
could just go by. Yeah.
Right, and have that nice flow. Just a suggestion. Honestly, you can keep it how it is, but
No, I think it's good.
yeah, that's how I'd design it.
what are your thoughts?
I'd be fine with that.
Okay,
Just a suggestion too. So.
Can we add that to the site plan then, Andrew? What they're suggesting?
That's,
Maybe in place of number 4?
yeah, if they're,
number
if-
4.
sounds like you guys are amenable to that.
Yeah, I'm sure they would, once they got up and running, they would find, which is working, what would work the best.
But as mentioned, whatever signage and/or painting would like to be done, you would like to do, to be helpful with that configuration is certainly up to you and would be wise to do it anyway and be fine with the city.
Justin, I got a question for you on the current exit off of this lot. Are we in, how, that's kind of a little, it kind of comes in at the corner there, so are we looking at, are you understanding this to be curb cuts on both sides, or is this going to be, would you have curb all the way along South Franklin to the exit itself? I don't know if you guys discussed exactly what that would look like.
We did. I'm trying to picture in my mind what that area looks like. I know there's pictures. There's a curb head there that's pretty large that could just be cut out and replaced. The very end of South Franklin is basically just off to gravel and grass.
Okay.
So really, that tie-in should be fairly minimal, or the impact or whatever you want to, constructability should be fairly easy there. So I don't see an issue with it. Here, I got it finally. Yeah, I don't know what pages, I don't have page numbers, but about that much forward. It's just kind of a gravelly, dirty area, and there is a curb head coming down Franklin that would probably have to be cut off to accommodate the full driveway width, and then they can just tie in with pavement and possibly, I don't know, maybe re-pour that curb head just to make it shape in there with the right radius.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions, commissioners? Any concerns from the group? Church group? Okay, anything else, Andrew, that you,
I had one more.
oh, I'm sorry.
Just one last thing is at the very end there was some concerns with drainage. If they put this parking lot in there, how that was all going to drain, but I believe that should be, basically a resolution should be figured out with the drainage plan. So, and I haven't seen the full drainage plan, so I'd appreciate looking at that, so.
Yeah, that's one other concern I'd have too, is where you're gonna go. It's pretty full. And then has a wetland determination been done back there? Do we know this is gonna work before we think about it too much?
I'm unaware.
Has there been state
I'm not aware.
permitting for that?
I think I remember asking, I don't believe there has been. At least I'm not aware.
And I know it said that that'll have to, the previous approval said that was part of needs to conform to the requirements. So I was just wondering, curious, if that's been done. Because that might impact the layout.
And that's approved by
and
the
like.
state, is that what you're saying, or is that a
If there's
state
wetland
approved?
impact, yeah.
That is?
So this doesn't need there's not enough acreage here
I
going on.
don't believe there's a wetland impact because basically what they're showing as an asphalt lot is already a gravel lot there that's pretty dang close to being about the grade and shape and everything right now. So really they're just would be adding some gravel, some minor shaping and putting asphalt on top of it, is what I understand. So that drop off that's there, that is steep, is pretty much shaped the way that they have that parking lot orientated.
Yeah. I was just thinking it's an acre, so. Is
So-
it an acre?
I believe it's less
Is it
than an
0.9?
acre.
It's under an acre. Would be exempt from RAP permit.
So Justin, from your perspective, when whoever does the construction on the parking area, it's pretty much going to be as it looks pretty much as it does right now as far as the ground, except it'll be paved. I mean, is there going to be much fill have to be brought in and that sort of thing?
I don't believe so. No.
Shouldn't be?
It's mostly just grass. So
Okay.
we might put some gravel on there. but we don't have immediate plan to asphalt it. But we're not changing any shape of it.
Okay.
They don't have a requirement to asphalt it either.
Well, in
I think
past,
it's, yeah, I think it says in here, under engineering, the lot shall be asphalt paved or concrete surface.
typically done, Mayor, is we've worked with developers, give them a
But
little
in-
time. It
But
depends
in
when
the
they
long
start.
run, it has to be
Yeah,
asphalted.
when it's all said
If
and
it's gonna be used as a parking lot.
Yeah.
Right, at least under, are
No,
you under,
that's-
do you understand that? That at some time in the future, you'll have to asphalt it? Okay. All right, anybody else? Justin?
Good, thank you.
So I think really there was only one item that got changed, and that was under the site plan number 4, to just show the in and out of the vehicles. Otherwise, I think everybody's okay with it. All right, we'd need a motion. Now, this is approved at the, right here, okay? So we're approving it right now. If you're okay with that. Anybody like to make that motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Alan, second by Pat, that we approve of the site plan review for the Church of Christ of Waupaca at 215 West Badger Street. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? And one abstention. So 6 ayes, no nays, 1 abstention. Motion's approved. Good luck to you guys. All right, we're down to the zoning code rewrite. Who's handling that? Andrew?
Oh, sure, with maybe a.
Oh, yeah,
lean
we'll
in.
tag team it.
Well, lean in from Henry. So I've been, one of the things I've spent a fair amount of time on so far is trying to wrap my head around where you're at with the zoning code rewrite. So what I've done is I'm working on a memo for Henry that I expect to give him next week that's going to kind of summarize where my understanding of where we are in the zoning code rewrite process. So I'm trying to sort of start with some rationale for why we're doing it, what's some of the overall goals and objectives or purpose for doing it. And then I've been going in through the files over the last 10 years and finding lots of notes and compilations of specific issues or challenges that you've had with the code, and I'm organizing those into some categories. And then from there, I'm going to put together some options or alternatives for Henry, probably Plan Commission, to consider as far as moving forward with the rewrite. I think there's some different pathways, you could look at. Do you do it entirely in-house? Do you lean on a little bit outside help? Do you do it right away? Do we kind of put the gas, to the pedal and continue with the rewrite right now? Is that something they will, Henry wants me to really dive in and help guide and steer? Or is it something we perhaps put on the back burner till you fill this position long-term? I think there's also some, some additional considerations in terms of the scope of the rewrite. One of the things that Brennan brought up was the potential of doing a unified development code that would wrap in some of the subdivision ordinances or some ordinances related to public works and streets, to create a unified development code. I'm not entirely sure if there's been a decision made on that or not. So I think there's some kind of questions regarding the scope of it. And then I also think, I know Brennan was pushing really hard for a form-based code, but there's different, there's probably some choices we need to make in terms of how aggressive you want to go down that path, and how complicated you want this zoning code to be. So I was hoping to have that memo done next week and to have some more conversations with Henry, probably Plan Commission, I'm guessing the mayor, to kind of come up with a game plan moving forward on the rewrite. I did attend the second community chat last week, It was very much it was a visual preference exercise, essentially, where there was a PowerPoint and showing different types of development. And there might have been eight folks in attendance, maybe something like that, non-staff, maybe 6 if you took out the staff, maybe half a dozen folks. So it was a visual preference exercise, getting people's input on different character styles of different development. So I actually thought the discussion was fairly good, fairly interesting. But I think there's a little bit of work to do just in terms of the upfront piece of kind of defining a little bit better the scope of this rewrite. And then the other thing observation I had is that I thought the schedule looked really aggressive. And certainly with Brennan leaving now, I think the potential for actually finishing this rewrite, I think it was back in December, or November, I think Brennan came forward with like a 1-year timeline to update this thing. I think it's probably unrealistic at this point that you'd finish this by the end of 2019. So that schedule may need to be revisited as well.
Yeah, I'd echo what Andrew said. I think for me, we've kind of gone out of the gate, trying to figure out a way, and we're going to need your help to kind of keep it going. We're coming into the summer, and there might be some rationale for pulling back a little bit. And then I think, too, Brennan's successor should, have a real hand on whatever this product is. So there's probably some reason to slow down. Now, you did mention we had a great discussion. We had about 3 or 4 people that were there that didn't say much. They were just interested, but there was some good comments. I think the challenge is, and it's like all public input processes, I'm sure John's familiar, it gets really frustrating. So we have got to do a better process, figure out some more ways to get at people. Because zoning affects everybody. It's the one thing we do that touches about everything we do. So I think that for me is going to be something I hope we can really come up with some good ideas. And we're not the first ones frustrated by this, and I think there's some neat techniques out there that we could maybe try. So we get a lot of input, right? It's always, you get to 90% on these things, and then everybody comes out of the woodwork. So we might need some focus groups, maybe is a good idea.
Henry, what about maybe trying to dovetail it when you already have some crowds of people? Like if you did something, if you had a booth or a visual at Strawberry Fest, for instance, sponsored by the city, which has, hundreds of people, just even walking by, looking at some of the different maps and or stuff you have, something like that, and then get some input right then and there. What do you think about this? Or do you have any comments on that?
That's a good idea.
I mean, if you already have some people coming for other things, maybe you could dovetail it in. Because quite honestly, most people aren't going to come and talk about zoning. I mean, it's just not a very exciting issue. But if they see it somewhere else in visual, they might have some comments.
Yeah, you could have, make a comment and get a free bottle of water for your comment.
There you go.
You have a lot of comments.
Give away free TV. No. Yeah. So I think that's our challenge, to try to get as much input.
Yeah, that's it. There. Right? Okay. Thank you, Andrew, Henry. All right, let's go down to reports then, our reports for the month of April. Andrew, Henry?
Well, our permit's issued. He looks, just going through it now. We had maybe 30 permits worth about $360,000 of work, about $7,400 in permit revenue. And then finally, you can see our code. This is something, you've seen this before. I think it's something we implemented maybe 6 months ago. Just so you're aware of kind of the activities of the code enforcement office. If you have any questions on that, I probably can't answer them, but I will get an answer for you tomorrow.
Well, this is usually about the time when we ask about, updating of things that maybe are, or certain concepts coming up. So, what's the status on the Cherney building and the move from the old Ad Inc. building, or the County Post building?
Well, I'm not sure where we're at with the county. Oh, okay. The
With
county,
Ruby's Pantry.
Yeah, the county post is actually looking for a site downtown.
Okay, but their old
Existing.
building, which
Yeah.
Ruby's is in,
Right.
is moving to Cherney's, is that my understanding?
Well, that's what we've just learned, and the problem is that use that they want is in conflict with our ordinance, we believe.
Oh.
We're trying to get people to come around the table, figure out what's going on.
Okay.
I
Okay.
mean, if in
Yeah.
fact they own that building, which we're pretty sure they do, there was no inquiry beforehand at all.
So Cherney, so our Kraft sold the building?
No, it's got a convoluted ownership. There was some legal issues, and they ended up kind of putting it out for bid or something on the courthouse square, or negotiated purchase. And we had one individual that wanted to buy it, had an agreed, I met with him today, in fact, agreed upon price. He checked with our planning and zoning office, and what he wanted to do there was not within our code. It was a not allowable use. And then he backed off. This next buyer did no such thing. So we're going to have to work through that.
And then the building that they're presently in, are they eventually vacating? Is that?
Well, I don't know. I can't tell you. I have no clue what they're doing. I would assume that's what they're going to do, but we have no information.
Well, I only asked because they put the sign up already.
Yeah, I saw it too.
Yeah, new future home of Ruby's Pantry. I thought, well, okay, somebody must know something.
Well, the issue is that it's a distribution center, and that's what's at odds with our zoning.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't appear to be, we're going to be sending a letter to the parent company. I believe they're based out of Minnesota.
They're out of Minnesota, yeah.
There doesn't appear at first glance to be any real resolution here. They're clearly looking for a warehouse distribution center in a commercial district that doesn't allow that.
Well, and I guess my question was why they would be moving from the distribution center that they have over at the building and site they are now.
Well, I can tell you they couldn't afford like an inside cooler. So they brought in tractor trailers.
Yeah, they always had one there.
Freezer,
Yeah,
whatever,
right.
cooler trailers. And they run at night. We've had a couple complaints from the neighbors through the years. But I guess that's got to be really cumbersome. You bring the trucks in, you unload the truck, put it in the cool. So I'm sure the Cherney building, it's got a lot of space, and it probably makes a lot of sense with what they're doing. To get that cooler situation fixed, but we got to figure out what's going on before they get too far down the road.
Yeah.
So it's sort of our priority to get right on that.
Okay.
It's interesting because that building, they had pulled a demolition permit back, I don't know, in January. And then this legal issue that I can't even begin to explain popped up. And it sent it down this whole nother trajectory of this negotiated sales. And I don't know how far you want to go. You remember, that's Cherney, it was industrial.
Right.
And if it stayed industrial use, what Ruby wants to do, perfect. We'd have to look at how they're moving their trucks in and out, and there might be a traffic study we'd want done or something. But anyways, remember, we rezoned it to try to pursue a commercial project, and we got going down the road on that, and the developers, walked. So it's just an odd duck a little bit, had it stayed current zoning, we could work with this. It's unfortunate. Well, I think we'll work through it. It just, it's not that easy, so.
Thanks, Pat.
Yeah.
I didn't mean for that to get all
Well,
public.
I'll tell you, I've worked with Ruby's because of the community garden. We deliver there every week for years now, since they've been in town. And they've changed the people over there, and they've changed their focus. They used to do distribution here in Waupaca. They don't do that any longer. As far as individual distribution, they used to have, remember, they were down on, down by the water treatment plant.
Right.
Okay, they don't do any of that in Waupaca. Now they're strictly wholesale materials from here to other sites. And they have, their tractor trailers you're talking about were always a godsend for us because we'd bring fresh produce and it was always refrigerated. They'd always have those trucks running all the time. But they had anywhere from 3 to 5 trucks in there all the time, moving in and out, which would have to be at the journey if they're going to do the same. But basically, they were just a warehouse, and down to a skeleton crew. They probably only had 4 or 5 people that were there, and several were volunteers. Only 2 or 3 were paid staff. But all of the decision-making process is long a distance from Waupaca, because they told me several times, we don't make any decisions, we just work here, because it's all out of Minnesota. So you're going to have to follow that up somehow.
Well, they must have made some contingencies or something when they purchased the property, that it has to be zoned properly or something, didn't they?
I don't know.
I mean, once you talk to them, you'll have to find out, but yeah, I would think they would. All right, anything else for the good of the meeting?
Move to adjourn.
Motion by Alan,
Second.
seconded by Tracy, that we adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Against? Motion carried. We're adjourned at 6:11. Thanks, everybody. Be safe.
Job, Andrew.